We're good.
I think we should discuss this further, actually.
I think we should discuss Brett's disgusting coffee.
What?
How many milks did you put in that?
3, but they're little.
How big? Were they individualized ones?
milks.
Do you always put milk in your coffee?
Yeah. I can't drink it black.
You can't or you won't?
Both.
You could if you were brave. if you weren't a coward with
Coffee
your cream.
black tastes like sucking on a tombstone. Like if I think of what sucking on a tombstone would taste like, that's what black coffee tastes like.
Have you ever tasted a tombstone?
I just like
every time he walks by a graveyard,
envision it in my mind.
It's like I just can't help myself. I just can't stop myself. That would be a great My Strange Addiction episode.
It's actually a weird visual.
Yes.
I don't know why that picture comes to mind.
There it was.
Well, we're up to a great.
Should we press record?
Should we pray before we start?
Oh, guys, this has all been recording.
Oh. What?
No, you said you're the producer, so I hit record.
So you produced.
All right, then we're in.
And then Brett talked about kissing.
Bam. Welcome to
graves.
Welcome. You can't say that in church.
Yeah, you shouldn't say that in church. Shouldn't have said that, Brett. Should not have said
That's
that.
the last time I'm making fun of Brett's coffee.
Yeah.
No, I think that's been an ongoing thing with me since I started here. Is being
My
upset.
coffee?
Yeah, because you come in with Tim Hortons all the time.
Hey, man.
You have chest hair?
You can't beat those prices.
Do you have chest hair?
A little bit. I got a little.
It's because he hasn't been drinking black coffee.
I don't really have chest hair, and
That's
I
what they
drink
say,
black
right?
coffee.
What's that?
I don't really have chest hair, and I drink black
You
coffee.
don't?
Not really, no.
Oh.
Like a little bit.
Oh.
You would think so, right? Like you think like I'd be like a Sasquatch, but no.
Doesn't trickle down, huh?
No.
Do you get neck hair?
Yeah, like if I have to trim my neck, or else it would become like a neared. I don't want to be like one of those fedora boys.
Yeah.
Like, my lady, right?
It's like
That's
Ruben.
the worst.
Someone's
listening to this wearing a fedora, looking at themselves in the mirror with a neck beard, like, oh, that's me.
I have mad chest hair.
You have chest hair?
Yeah. I have to shave it like every couple weeks.
You ever wax?
Nope. Never in my life.
Have you ever waxed?
Have you ever waxed chest hair?
Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. My grandfather, my mom's dad, his beard can connect to his chest hair.
Wow.
Like it's like a carpet.
It just intertwines and becomes one. It's just you don't know where the chest hair ends and begins, and the beard begins and ends. I'm terrified of back hair.
Actually, I get a few rogues.
Yeah, everyone gets
rogue
a rogue.
wanderers that I gotta trim down.
Just pluck them.
I think my grandfather's a Sasquatch, but he's dead. So Brett will go make out with his tombstone.
Yes.
Later
Could you imagine if that was just like a callback with no pre-reference? It's like, yeah, and Brett will just go make out with my grandpa's tombstone. Whatever. Not
That's
a big deal.
weird thing to say.
I'm scared of like back hair. That's what would
I don't
freak
get
me.
back hair.
I don't either. But
actually,
I'm
I get a
to.
weird patch on the back left side of my neck,
Only the left side.
and I have to get. Sometimes I try to shave it myself, but I've cut myself before.
What are you
So I
using? A
get
steak
Natalie to
knife? How do you cut yourself?
No,
I cut myself shaving every time I shave.
He just attaches a shaver to a broomstick, and then in the mirror,
No, because
he
it's like
It's just a steak knife duct taped to a piece of PVC pipe.
with 2 mirrors.
I'm horrible at shaving. I legit cut myself shaving almost every time.
Do you use like an actual like razor?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I use an electric razor. I don't shave, but I don't.
Well, yeah, like I shave right down.
How often do you shave?
Once a week. Yeah, I feel like once a week.
So your hair, it doesn't grow that fast then.
No,
See, I feel like
it
I'm at the
grows
point
a
where I just
normal.
like plug my nose and just shoots out. I feel like Ruben probably has that.
I have a
more than-
literal 5 o'clock shadow.
Puffer
Yeah.
fish.
You-
hair.
I shave every day.
Yeah,
I have to.
Ruben waxed his
day?
face this morning, and this is
I
what
would
he's
hate
working
that.
with.
Every day.
I
I
hate
shave. I clean shave my neck, and then I have my beard trimmer that kind of leaves a little bit of stubble. But I have to do it every day.
Wow, that sucks. I want to see you grow it out. You should grow it out.
Well,
one month.
Would your wife be okay with it?
I think so. I just won't be able to
I just want to
fly.
see you beardy Ruben.
Why, Ruben? Why do
I only want to be allowed in
Why?
airports.
And when I go through the airports, I get stopped every time. Every time. I'm like, what about me
That's funny.
is triggering you to pull me aside for another random search? It's not random if it's every time.
Yep.
Every time. Yeah. And I don't even know what to claim on that. I don't like. I'm not even sure what to say is the problem here. But also, do you feel as uncomfortable as I do in those like machines that X-ray you, but then you're naked?
Wait, you just go naked?
when Jeff,
if you say so.
Jeff takes off all his clothes.
Like this is because everyone was upset about those things because it basically makes like a somewhat
like exposes
you so that they can see if you have anything on. But and I saw the picture and it's like not really like it's like a silhouette of you. It's not like you can never tell it's you. But like could you imagine? I don't know if we can use this in the podcast, but could you actually imagine if like someone got confused and goes in there and just strips? It's like no, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. That's to get arrested that way.
Imagine.
What are your thoughts, Abby?
Let's move on. Please.
All of this is unusable.
Abby can't use any of this.
That's okay. That's okay.
Oh, it's definitely usable.
It's all usable. You just have to have courage.
Abby will find a way to use it.
You have to have courage. We're just making it way more complicated for editing down the road with this. Yeah. Anyways, so Brett, tell us about your most embarrassing dating story.
Oh my gosh. Why are you asking me?
I feel like that's a good start.
Out of the three of us, this is the best option you can choose.
My most embarrassing dating moment?
Or like,
I have so many
chasing after a girl or just like
gosh.
falling in love.
I feel like all this, I have some really good ones, but the stories are really long.
Okay, give us like the TikTok version.
Okay, so it's one time. Where do I start? Hold on. Okay, so I saw this girl on Facebook, and I was like,
wow.
This is my future. Sorry, I shouldn't hit the table. This is my future special female friend. So then I was like, okay, how do I like meet this person? But then I saw we had a lot of mutual friends. So I was like, okay, that's a good start. And then I was working at Target at the time, by the way. That's a very important part of this story. So then, I got invited to a Valentine's Day party for single people. And then I saw, and it was like a Facebook group invite. And then I saw that she was also invited to the party. So then I was like, okay. However, I was really excited. However, I was scheduled to be at Target, to work at Target that night. And it was like, I think it was like the week of or something. And like no one was going to switch shifts with me. So I was like, okay, what do I do? Like to get out of this, you know? So then the best thing I could think of was I called in to Target and I pretended I was sick. So I think my manager's name was like Tasha or something. And I was like, Tasha, I'm like been throwing up all day, like blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, okay, that's fine, but just make sure to bring in a doctor's note in your next shift. So then I was like, okay, I need to get a doctor's note. So then, and it was like crazy snowstorm that day. So like driving around was like crazy. So then I drove around St. Albert trying to find a walk-in clinic and to get a doctor's note. And then I like couldn't find, sorry, I know it says it's going to be TikTok version, but this is going long.
Just go for it.
We're too far in already. So then I drove around St. Albert trying to find a doctor's clinic. And it was like, I almost got in like 3 car accidents because the roads were like crazy. And then I finally found one. I walked in and they were like, I went to the front person and I was like holding my stomach, even though I was not sick at all. And I felt so guilty the whole time. I was like, I'm like really sick, like blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, okay, it'll be like a 2-hour wait. So then I was like,
this girl better be
no,
your
okay.
wife.
The story, no, okay, yeah. It was not Natalie, by the way. But I won't say who it was. But anyways, so then I was like, okay, that's okay. So then I go and I like sit down, and like right next to me was a kid in like a wheelchair who was like legit, like looked seriously ill. And I was sitting there for 2 hours, like I felt so guilty. I felt like God was gonna like strike me with lightning. So then I was like, I legit waited for 2 hours in the in the place. Yeah, actually, now that I like, as I tell this story, like I was really desperate. Like it's crazy that I did this, you know. But anyway, so I waited for 2 hours, and then they finally called me up, and like I go see the doctor, and I like make up some story. It's just like lies, like compounding on top of lies, you know? So like I go see the doctor and then make something up, and they're like, okay, give me, like, they're like, oh, you should do this or whatever. And then I go to the front counter again, and then she's like, okay, that'll be, I had to pay money.
Yeah, I've done that.
So I paid money. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so deep.
It's like $20 or something like that.
Yeah,
for a piece of paper.
Yeah, so I think it was more than that. But anyway, so then I go back home, and then I go to the party in the evening, and I got the doctor's note or whatever, go to the party, and like, you know, I'm there like, just like chilling, like girl isn't there yet or whatever. And then she walks in, and I was like, cause I was like, what if she didn't show up to the party? Oh, I just hit my mic super hard. What if I didn't show up to the party? Or no, what if she didn't show up to the party? And it's all like for nothing.
What if I didn't show up?
What if I forgot completely?
Yeah. So then she comes in, and she walks in, she goes like, sits with her friends and stuff. And I was like, okay. I was like talking to people. I was like, how do I get over there? Blah, blah, blah. Thinking about it, you know, like an hour goes by. I'm still trying to like plan my strategy. Another hour goes by, you know.
I'm shocked this didn't work out for you.
And then literally like a few hours go by. She gets up, walks, and leaves. I didn't even talk to her.
Oh my gosh.
And so I remember I was driving home. I couldn't muster up the courage. So I was driving home. I remember the doctor's note was in the passenger's seat. And I was like, I just waited in a doctor's office for 2 hours, called in sick, like lied to all these people.
Lost money.
To go to a party.
Including the kid in the
talk
wheelchair.
to meet a girl that I never mustered up the strength to talk to. And then when I went into Target, my next shift, Tasha never asked me for the doctor's note. So it was all for nothing. And
So Jeff asked you for your most embarrassing date.
This was just a time where you didn't
This wasn't even a date.
You didn't even talk to a girl in this.
Well,
this was all an internal struggle.
You stared equally at the girl and the kid in the wheelchair.
You stalked a girl on Facebook, lied to your boss,
the
lost
crazy
money,
thing is,
and
I feel
never
like I
talked
have
to a
even
girl.
worse stories than that. I had like a horrible. I feel like my brain just blocked it all out of my memory because of
You've repressed all the memories.
the trauma.
My worst thing, I wasn't a date, and I think I might have told this story once at the project before, but I was probably in grade 8, I want to say, or grade 9. I was on my bike, and I was biking home, and I was like on one side, it's a pretty like slow residential road, and I'm on this like one side, and then I see a girl walking the other way, and I'm like, well, she's pretty. I was like, this girl's attractive, and like, I'm making eye contact with her. I'm kind of biking by.
Popping a wheelie?
I'm not built for popping wheelies.
Check me out.
Never been able to do that. More of a put the pop can in the spokes of the bike to make it sound like a race car type of guy.
Nice.
And
Like a hockey card.
yeah. And so I'm going down, and finally, like, she looks over at me, or we make eye contact, and I'm like, okay, this is it. Like, I don't know how. It's probably a similar situation where I don't know what I would have actually done. I had no plan, but we made eye contact, and like as we're going by, I kept eye contact and kind of turned, and like my complete attention is on her, not on the road. And right when she's looking at me, like full eye contact, staring right at me, I drove full speed in the back of a van, like just wham!
Oh, I remember this.
And I went head over heels and like crumpled my neck. The back, like it wasn't quite like this, but I kind of picture like in an old cartoon where Wile E. Coyote and Bugs Bunny like leaves an indent in the rock. That was me, like my full silhouette in the back of this van. I got up, like my handlebars are sideways. I'm bleeding, like I can barely
man.
get. I was really, really, really hurt. Like
Wow.
I was really hurt. Like no broken bones, but like I was messed up for about a week. I was going, and I'm like, when you're not looking, I flew over the handlebars and like crumpled this van. Like
Oh, man.
this was a bad accident. And I'm like trying to get up, and she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Trying to like shake it off. I just was testing the integrity of that van. Don't worry, it's safe. we never talked after that. It didn't work out either. Imagine if it did. Imagine if that's how you met your wife.
Imagine a wedding story.
Imagine she was a paramedic and she saved me.
Wow.
It would have been perfect. Didn't work though. Didn't happen.
Unbelievable.
Quick little side thingy with my story. I did end up going on some dates with that girl, and I felt like and then I felt really confident and like comfortable, and like I told her the story, and I think I freaked her out, and then she like ended it like 2 days later. I remember I like told her, and then I was like,
Brett,
and then I could tell it kind of was freaking out. I'm like, was that kind of a weird thing to say? And she's like, yeah, it's kind of like
It's only the second date,
and then,
man.
Yeah, and then she
You should have known better than to tell the truth.
broke
Brett.
my heart. Yeah, seriously.
That's crazy. Ruben.
Mine's not like a date, but when I was dating someone, back when I was living in Kamloops, I was already a pastor, and we had our pastors conference in Vancouver, and I told her she was my girlfriend at the time, and I told her I was going to go to this pastors conference, but then she went to my apartment, and she texted me. She's like, "Hey, where are you?" I'm like, "I told you, I'm at the pastors conference in Vancouver," and she says, "No, you're not. Stop lying to me." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And so she tried to pick the lock of my door in my apartment, and then when I came home from Vancouver, the caretaker. I can't say what he says because this is not you really can't say that in church. But he comes to, yo, man, this chick tried to like screwdriver into your apartment door. She's bat crazy. And I was like, what? And I go to my door and like these scratches all around my door lock. And then I broke up with her.
And then you found out she was burning an effigy of you in her kitchen.
Love makes you do crazy things.
That's not love.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So I'm sharing that story.
Crazy love.
I'm sharing that story during the message series. But people who are watching this podcast can get a little preview of this.
Did you ever talk to her again?
No. I'm glad she didn't like really. I'm glad I thought to myself like, oh, what if she like follows me or it gets a little creepy? But
Yeah.
never came back to the church.
That's
never,
terrifying.
Didn't see her again. I saw her once at the mall, but this is Kamloops. You see each other everywhere. So that's my story.
Wow.
Well,
TikTok version.
that is
Yeah,
that is really scary.
Yeah.
As Brett's like, hey, it was a cold winter night in the middle of February.
Tasha was her name. I remember.
Her middle name was, give me a second.
Also, I did a thing kind of like your story, except it was in the intersection of like right outside the church. And I didn't run into a van. I drove onto the Meridian thing, and it wasn't a girl I was distracted by. It was like crazy-looking dog.
So it was nothing like my story.
I was turning.
like my
No,
story.
this is TikTok version.
Okay.
Because it's a really short story. Even the normal version is a TikTok version. But like, so I was turning, and this person was walking this crazy-looking dog with this like weird like thing on it.
A leash?
I don't know what it was.
A
but
collar?
I was like, this is when I still had my Oldsmobile. That thing like was like the Titanic. It, like the thing was
It's
like
called the whale. For
freaking
It
boat.
broke.
But I was turning and I saw the dog and I was like, "Whoa, that's a crazy looking dog!" And then all of a sudden it was like, I was like on the Meridian thing, and then that's this.
I thought you were going to say that's, I have a similar story, except for I wasn't on a bike. I was in a van and I hit someone on a bike. I was like, that's not the same thing at all.
You're both staring at the same girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except for Brett thought she was a weird looking dog.
Crazy looking dog.
Wow.
Trying to remember what what it was about that dog.
Yeah, what was so special?
I think it
about
was
the
like
dog?
it was wearing like a jacket or something.
That was that weird that you had to hit the meridian
like
over
a
it.
fully, like a big jacket.
Can't even handle what's happening here. All right, well, let's talk about what we're actually here to talk about. So with the new series coming up, which is Ruben, what's the title of the series?
It is called Hopeless Romantic.
So talking about
Kind of like Brett's
relationships.
life before he was married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Recklessly.
I got a lot of
hopeless.
stories, man.
I don't know why Brett was not asked to speak in this series.
No, you don't want any of
He's gonna
that.
give me a step by
It's
steps
just him,
how to
It's just so many stories
just
of him failing, and him and
Yeah.
Tasha, and him and the wheelchair kid
Oh
Yeah.
man.
every Sunday.
Also, why was the wheelchair kid even a part of that that story?
it was the
He's just like
guilt.
it's just an Easter egg.
It was the guilt because he was actually ill,
Okay, that's
He
fair.
was
You
actually supposed
slowed
to be
his
there.
you slowed
and I was
his
perfectly healthy.
health. Okay, makes sense.
The Lord's
really,
doing.
really exposed Brett's integrity too.
A little bit, a little concerned actually moving forward. So yeah, we talk we do this series every year more or less. Some sort of like it's pretty easy to pair up Valentine's Day, February with relationships. We're not the only church that does that. It's pretty common, but frankly, this is like we're a church for young adults at the project, and this tends to be something that young adults are concerned about because generally young adults mostly aren't married. You get the odd Christian young adult who gets married at like 17 and has 7 kids before they're graduated high school, but that's less and less. And
That's also called a cult.
yeah, yeah, that's the starting of a TLC show.
Yep.
Like we had 17 kids and were married before we were 20. Follow us with cameras because you should care about our lives, I guess.
Yeah,
That's TLC. Now, they should legally have to remove the learning from the learning channel, is my opinion at this point. But young adults are, they care. They're generally looking for a spouse or they're, stalking them in doctor's offices or whatever else is happening. But frankly, even talking about relationships and sex, we've seen in the metrics over the last couple of years, and this shouldn't be a surprise, like whenever there's the word sex in like a series title on YouTube, our views go up significantly. It's
true.
You just have to put the word sex on there and like people will tune in and watch it.
We should just put sex in all of our titles.
Yes. I feel like it could get confusing and not be misleading, but it would lead to
we'll get a
a
lot of
handful of
action.
more views. But yeah, no, it's definitely something that young adults like care about, right? And so we talk about it. But this series isn't just exclusively about sex. It's a lot of conversation about relationships because and that's something I actually think is important to talk about when you're talking about relationships. Like I get it because when you're a young adult, when you're your 20s and teens, like your brain is, especially guys, like so wired for sex, and you're thinking marriage. I can't wait to get married so I can have sex, and you're like, that's all you can think about. That's the pinnacle. But then, like, I remember someone told me, I think it was my pastor, or like a Bible college professor, somebody with like some sort of mentorship. And he was like I get it. But he's like, imagine this, like you are, if it's ridiculous. It's not possible. This is a total like over the top exaggeration. But even if every married couple had sex 1 hour every day, you still have 23 hours that you have to be married to that person. And so like, and I know every like 15-year-old guy or 18-year-old guy thinks that, oh yeah, I'm gonna have sex like 1,000 hours a week, even though that's not real. Like,
I think you'd die.
it's not. It wouldn't work.
Oh man.
But like, it's just not realistic. Like that's not how it works. And so even if it was 1 hour a day, you still have 23 hours with that other person.
True.
Where if all your relationship was built around was like physical, sexual interaction and everything else is terrible, you're going to be miserable and your marriage probably won't last. And so there's so many different other things that build up like before you're married, before you get to have sex, like a part of who you are and what you bring to the table in a relationship and in singleness and all those things. So having a larger conversation about what the steps are that you need to do to ensure that you're going to, at the end of the day, have a healthy marriage and a healthy relationship. And yeah, like sex is a part of that, and we will talk about that on some level. But there's got to be a balance between just doing an entire series on like, here's, specifics on sex, or here's how far is too far, like the classic youth group conversations that are not bad, but maybe having a little bit more of an adult conversation about it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I think we're starting off with the first message being on singleness, which is this Sunday.
Abbey.
And Abby's talking about it. Not the whole message, but what do you like?
Can you imagine I just
Depending-
start reading my
dep-
whole
Just your
manuscript
manuscript.
right now?
Depending on when this podcast comes out, it could have been
It's
this past
actually probably
Sunday.
very likely that it was.
It
this
might be the
past-
past Sunday. You can tune in.
I mean, this will
Links
not be
in the
edited for this
bio.
week.
Three Sundays ago,
So like
Yeah.
a little throwback Thursday.
Yeah, coming up.
or last month.
Let's say on the first Sunday of February, Abby's talking about singleness. And whatever day this comes out, then you can either go back or into the future and watch that. Actually, you can't go into the future.
You can't.
It's not how
Back
that
to the
works.
future.
Back to
You
the
have to
future.
go back to it. You can't.
Back to the future. Abby, have you ever like hit a van or
Seen a
lied?
abnormal dog.
However,
or been guilt tripped
sorry.
by a kid in a wheelchair.
almost yes to all of those things.
All in the pursuit of relationships.
Actually, all happened in one day for her.
It was all one moment. Just, okay, where do I start with? Have I ever hit a van? No. What was the other one? Have I ever
Seen a really cool dog.
seen a
Have
cool
you ever
dog?
seen a really cool dog before?
Yes, it did not cause me to drive
Murphy.
onto a
She's
marina.
seen Murphy.
Your
He's
dog.
a
That's
very
true. I
cool
love
dog.
Brett's dog.
Okay. But yeah, like I guess Abby, what are you mainly talking about, or like not the whole message, but like what's the focus?
Yeah, totally. I think, just mainly talking about how there's just different seasons in our lives, and like if we can find contentment, whether we are in a relationship or we are single or married or whatever that looks like. Just realizing that God has us in a specific season for a specific time. I think what's difficult with singleness is that it's like both with church culture and like secular culture, like there's just a huge emphasis placed on relationships and marriage. And not that that's a bad thing, but from both angles, sometimes it just feels like singleness can be kind of like second best. So, I'm sure it's likely that most people get married, most people end up in a relationship, and so it's a matter of knowing that God has prepared the way, but He's just preparing you. So that's Cole's notes.
Brett's like, I've been there. I've been there. Yeah. I do think that is one of the things that we don't talk about enough, though, because it is everyone who's ever been single or struggled feels like they're always going to be single and struggle. Like there's no way out. And if you've been single for any amount of time, it's like, oh man, like this sucks. And like you start to question yourself, and you question whether you're, and like especially in church, like it seems like I was kind of joking, everybody gets married so young, or a lot of people do. Now the stats are that like, and it's creeping into church a little more, but with the trend of extended adolescence, like the average age of getting married is something like 28 to 30 now. And like similar with moving out from home, which is crazy to me, but you know, it is what it is. These are the stats. But if you're 27 and all your friends in your friend group, if you have like 5 friends you grew up with, and you know 4 of your friends got married at 21 and have kids, and have 6-year-olds, and you're still kind of living at home with your parents, and that's totally reasonable. But you may feel like you're the only one who's, and like, what's wrong with me, and why does no one love me, and does God even have a plan for someone for me? And like, it's difficult.
I think the toughest part when I was like, and for me, and I think even Brett too, like we got married at a later age. Like, were you 30?
I was 29.
29. I was 31 when I got married, and I think the biggest lie I kind of succumb myself to is that like if I'm single, my impact is significantly less than when I'm married. You know, and so that God can't use me as much as if I was married. And but also on top of that, like Abby makes a great point about, like singleness is a preparation thing. But I would also not like push back on it, but add to it. But like, what if you are technically prepared, right? Now, because we're always in a season of preparation, even when we are married, right? And so there's also this like kind of like season where it's about the waiting. It's about like finding the right person as well, because I got married at 31, but and it's only just been just over a year, but I look back, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I waited because of the person I'm with. And so, you know, like how do you balance those things as well? Like what happens when you feel like, okay, you're content in Christ, you know, your character is matchable. You're just waiting for that season. Like that's a tough season as well, just being in that waiting time.
It's funny because I felt like the opposite. Like, because you can do more when you're single. Like I was.
Oh yeah.
So like
way more like freedom.
I was worried that getting married was gonna hinder me ministry wise, because it was like being single, I was able to like give all of my time to the things that I was passionate about. That's and true. Like ministry and like and I loved, you know, and maybe too because I was like older or something, so you just get to the point, maybe I got to the point where I was more comfortable with it or something, but I loved the freedom that I had and the independence that I had. And so I remember I had a fear of losing influence when I was getting married, which maybe is different than a lot of people, because I've heard most people, I feel like from what I've heard, feel the way like you were describing, but my experience was like the opposite, which is interesting. So
Brett is also an anomaly.
I am.
This is true.
Everyone aches to get married. Brett's
actually
like,
loved being single.
I don't want to get married.
I loved being single.
I think too often people will be so desperate to get married that they miss out on the fun of singleness. I always tell people, like when I'm talking to young adults, especially if they're like 20 or 21, it's like, oh no, I only have like 3 more years to have kids. It's like, you're 21. You're fine. You're fine. But they're pumped about it and they're excited and they want this so bad. I would say like, wait till you're 25 if you can. Like not as a like hard rule, but like you'll never have the time of your being like 20 to 25, being able to travel, being able to like spend money, being young. Like it goes quick and you can spend so much time being focused on what you don't have that you don't have any fun during like this very brief window where you're still young enough to act childish in some ways and be, you know, independent, but you're still an adult enough to enjoy the realities of being an adult. You're not, you know, you could be living on your own. I never got to, you know, and maybe it's a good thing, but I never got to like move out and have like my friends as roommates or anything like that before I got married. Like I lived at home, and you know, from a side of financially and all those things, that was the best case scenario. But there is some of those social elements of like moving out and being with your friends and kind of discovering that independence and like fighting over who drank each other's like groceries, like the milk or whatever. But like I've honestly seen it so many times. You're so desperate, spend all your time going to doctor's offices and faking you're sick instead of enjoying your time and being like, oh, I can. Honestly, it does depend on your spouse. Like my wife, Sage, is not overly demanding at all. Like I'd say very, very, very much not. Yeah. Like even the norm. I think I have it pretty easy when it comes to that. But some spouses, and it doesn't mean that they're like overbearing or wrong, they have more needs of time and stuff like that. So for some people, it might have been giving up more time. It might be, you know, it depends on the person. But that's where you have to be self-aware enough of what you need in a relationship. I think too often there's always like, you concede some ground on some of the things, like there is always compromise. But are you willing to give up who you are going into a marriage or a relationship? If you have to change everything about yourself, that's not the right person to marry.
Right.
Like you're not, that just means you're not compatible. And if somebody, like if a guy or a girl, you know, depending who you are, comes in with this idea that they're going to change the other person, oh, I can work on that. No. Yeah. Like, yeah, you work together to be both better, both closer to God. But like, oh, I like the base package there, but I'm going to have to work with the accessories. Like, no. You don't get to change who this is. That's not fair to either side. And that's how you end up having these like 10 years in and being like resentful to the other person because they didn't become the perfect version of what you thought you could mold them into. If you think you're going to mold someone into the perfect spouse, that's putting you at the top of the hierarchy. And marriages don't work with hierarchy. It's working together.
Yeah. And like, even man, there's so much you could say on this, but like, I will say everyone's story is different. Like, I know, Ruben, you said, like, we got married older, which I'm so thankful I got married older. But I also know, like, I know people that got married at a really young age.
Like me.
How old were you?
I was 23. Sage was
Okay.
20. We were way too, like,
Yeah.
way
Some
too
people,
young.
it works really well, though. Like, I know people that got married at, like, 20 and 19, and they're, like life's great. Like, they're loving it.
It worked. It worked.
Yeah.
Like, we're together. It was the right. We got married fast. We got engaged really fast. Like, I think it was like 6, 7, 8 months in. Like, just the dumbest thing we could have done. We're way
Yeah.
too young. And some of that wasn't just being stupid. Some of the, like, the speed of it was, like, had to do with, it also wasn't the right reason to change it around. But, like, her family was, some of them were moving away. And we thought, well, if we do it, we're going to do it. If it's a matter of 4 months difference, then whatever.
Yeah.
But 23 isn't that young, but like Sage had just
It's
turned
young.
20.
I
Like,
would
it
say
was
it's
way
young.
too young. And like, we still both say
Especially
we would marry
nowadays.
the same. We would still obviously marry each other. We just would have done it at like 26 and 24 or whatever. Like if we would have waited 4 years, finished school, saved a little more money, like we would have set ourselves up for a way better start to the marriage. And even now, like, we're still financially, we're paying off debt that we had to take on, because if we would have stayed at home, we wouldn't have had to pay that, right? And so I think that's the flaw of youth. When you're young, you don't have long-term perspective, and it's hard to. That's just how life is. But you want it now. I want it right now. I want sex now. I want marriage now. I want to feel validated by having this other person. I want to keep up with my friends who are getting in relationships and getting married and having kids. And it's like, well, actually, you're just putting yourself behind the 8 ball, because you're rushing into something good at the wrong time.
Just like, yeah, just one more thing on it before we move on from this. But like I was an anomaly in how much I loved being single. And like you mentioned, like, people need to enjoy being single more, which is so much easier said than done. But I feel like it not only made being single more, like, that season of my life more enjoyable, but I think it also protected me from choosing very poorly in a spouse, in the sense of I wasn't, because I learned to appreciate being alone, and I actually legitimately like enjoyed it. I knew I wasn't going to settle, because when I was like dating someone, the thought of, because one of my biggest worries, and I see this happen with people a lot, is they're so desperate for a spouse. They're so desperate to get married. The very like thought of being alone is like the worst thing ever in their minds. So they get into a relationship, and then even if it's not a healthy relationship, even if it's with someone where they have to change who they are to be with that person, or that person tears them down, or even this is like these are extreme cases, but even if it's like an abusive relationship, they'll just stay in it because anything would be better than going back to being single. So they just settle, and for me, like, even when I was dating Natalie, like, the thought of going back to being single, I was like,
Sounds good.
yeah, like, and I knew, like, this sounds kind of harsh, but it was like, I remember saying to God when I was like praying about it, I'm like, I feel like I have this I saw my singleness as like a precious gift. And I'm like, if I'm going to trade this in, it better be for something that's like worth it. Because I'm not just going to throw this away to anyone or whatever. And I think that protected me from, ending up in a really unhealthy, because if it would have been like a really unhealthy relationship, or they would have like, tore me down or whatever, I would have been out of there like, okay, like, I don't need this. Like,
And so many people don't, though.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're so scared of being alone. You're so scared of maybe the fear.
And it blinds you, and then you put up with things that you shouldn't put up with. And that's how I feel so many people end up in really unhealthy relationships that are just not good for them,
Well, I've been there where, like, I dated a girl for 2 years, and it was so unhealthy. Like, she was like, it was bad. Like, she was not great to me. And so I think looking back, I knew that I needed to end it. I knew, and eventually she ended it, and that made me even more upset because I knew I should have ended it. You know what I mean? Like, no, like you can't fire me, I quit. But she got there first. But like, it was so obvious. The red flags were everywhere. But I actually think in hindsight, looking back, I was too scared to leave what was basically like, there was some abuse there, not like physical, but just like emotional and manipulation and stuff, and lying and stuff like that. And I knew it, but I was actually worried about being alone again, having to go through the process of finding somebody, especially the longer you're in a bad relationship, the harder it is to get out. Right. And I was scared because I told so many people that I loved this person. I was very, like, I wasn't hiding it. And it's fairly obvious. Been with this person for a couple of years, been through some tough times, some health concerns, stuff like that. But the embarrassment of having to concede and admit to people that I was wrong. Like that really, that might not be everyone's story, but I
think it's pretty common. Like
it's a huge fall.
It is like
your pride.
There is embarrassment that whether it's like a breakup or calling off a relationship, there is embarrassment that can.
Or they turn out to be crazy and try to break into your house, like Ruben's story. Like, I don't know, how long were you with that person?
4 months.
Okay, so let's say that came out 2 years in, and people knew that you were like shopping for a ring. That's a bit of a fall for your pride. Like,
kind of a flag, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be like, wow, and yet, like, what is it saying about me that like I was attracted to a crazy person?
Yeah.
Like, that's what's wrong. I'm a crazy person then, right? Like, I liked this. I was too stupid to see the red flags. Like, I can never trust myself again. No one could ever trust me. Who would ever want to date me because I'm so foolish, right? Like, you start to spiral into these like self-deprecating statements to yourself. And I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I've definitely been there before, where it is really hard to end something, especially the older you get. I've talked to people who finally get a boyfriend or girlfriend at like 29, and they've been pretty desperate for a while, and then they're like, well, I can't give up on this because like
they're like all in.
Yeah. I'm all
when it's like a really bad situation,
And you tell somebody it's better to marry the right person at 35 than it is to marry the wrong person at 25 or 22, and like you get a blank stare back. And I get it because I've been there before. But like, if you only could have that, it's that class. I wish I knew what I know now when I'm younger. But like, if you could just have the perspective that like, your ovaries are not drying up. You're not, you're not gonna. Well, you might go bald, but that's not that big of a deal. You'll be okay. But people start to worry about just aging out and not being able to find anybody, and that is a very scary thing. Like, that's probably the greatest fear of the young adult, phase of life.
Imagine going bald in your 20s.
Dude, I went to high school with a guy who looked like Dr. Phil at 16.
Poor John.
I didn't even think about that. No. Sorry.
That's what I said.
John's here helping us with cameras. He's not on mic. John, how old were you when you started going bald? 7?
19.
19.
Yeah, he said 7.
Wow.
Anyways, yeah.
Random shot off camera.
I think before we move on, just one last quick thought. Like, I think our lives portray who Jesus is, and I think both the season of marriage and the season of singleness can portray the gospel. And I think, if you're single out there, you have an incredible reach that married people actually don't. And, I think the question I always thought to myself, like what I was taught was like, instead of asking the question, what can you do about your singleness, is what can you do with your singleness? And I think impact is huge. Reach is huge. I think that you are not discounted in the kingdom of God, and that actually you have a hand to reach people that other people actually can't.
Yep. Totally.
And it's important to find your value not in other people. And that's not just in marriage and relationships, but for sure it's in just, if you're not confident in who you are and who Jesus made you to be, when you're not with someone else, you're not going to be that with somebody else. You're not going to be able to bring what you need to your relationships down the road. You'll actually just be like a void.
Your spouse will pay the price for that,
Yeah.
because you'll bring in a bunch of messy baggage that you're going to have to work through in the relationship, and you'll make it a lot more
Your
difficult
spouse has
for
to
yourself.
carry your weakness in that, your deficiencies. So work on, like, singleness is a great chance to work on those things. And just like dating is, in the same way that when you're dating, you're working on things, you're seeing if you're compatible. Well, you need to don't start training for the Olympics when you show up there, right? You actually train. That's why Olympic athletes train year round, because they're trying to constantly get better for that pinnacle moment. And
Great.
I think that sometimes we think that we're just going to meet the right person, everything will come together. I'll get married and then I'll work on that thing. I'll get married and then I'll start working on my anger problems. I'll get married and then I'll start thinking about stopping watching porn. I'll get married and then all these, you know what I mean? There's all these things that marriage is not the solution to your problems.
Yep.
It will actually.
If anything,
make
it's
work.
just like a magnifying glass.
Totally.
Like it just magnifies
Because you have to be vulnerable.
the things that are kind of already there, you know.
Speaking about working by yourself, that leads to our next probably portion, right? Try to move on.
Yeah, let's do it.
Do yours.
Good.
To your
job,
message.
Ruben. We do need to move on.
Which is my messaging.
Why no one wants to swipe right?
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the whole thing.
It's about working on yourself, right?
Yeah, it's basically kind of what we were saying there already. Is we need to work on ourselves, and if you're not like investing in yourself, like so many people will work really hard on getting their body in shape, so someone will be attracted to them. It's like, oh yeah, like I'm at the gym every day, training, all that stuff, and then their like personality is brutal, they're rude, they're selfish, they don't reflect Christ at all, right? And I think that people get too focused on actually projecting a version of themselves without actually building up who they are.
Right.
And again, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so if you're not like training for the right thing, if you're not working on the right parts of yourself, if you're not truly seeking Jesus for the right reasons, I think actually one more thing to throw out there that I just thought of is like, I think sometimes people will try and present a version of themselves that's more in tune with Jesus than they are, so that they'll attract a spouse. So they'll be like, okay, this person's got it together. You know, if I'm a guy and I'm trying to like get a girlfriend at the project, well, I want them to, I'll go to a small group and I'll look really spiritual. I'll make it sound like I'm always reading the Bible and praying. Like I seem like I'm an adult, and when I go home, like my life is absolutely falling apart. I've been that guy before at the project when I was like 19. Like you're making the fake version of yourself. You're putting on a mask, but inside you're empty, you're rotten, you're not getting better. And so you're so focused on that end outcome that you're not working on who you are and working on your character and making sure that you reflect Jesus. And that's what I think is the most important thing, is to realize like the most attractive thing you can do in the long run is to exemplify and amplify and reflect the character of Jesus and the characteristics of reflect how he lived his life and his patience, his kindness, all those things that are good in every element of life, but they're going to be the best case scenario for your relationships as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally.
So, but yeah. So, Ruben, you had some game you wanted us to do.
Well, it's not a game. It's just more like a.
It's an escape.
Kind of like
We're gonna do an escape room. An escape room on the
The
podcast.
clue one. No, because in the whole spirit of our relationship series, we're kind of designing everything with a very nostalgic feel, 90s retro. Our visuals will kind of encompass it, but it also kind of has a feel like the rom-com era. You guys remember the rom-com era in the 90s?
Yes.
Never been kissed. That's all I know.
Okay, so on that note, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. The question I wanted to ask you guys was like, are there any rom-com movies from the 90s that still resonate with the Gen Z crowd? Abby, are you a millennial?
Okay, so I was born in 98, so I'm like on the cusp.
Okay.
A zillennial.
Yeah.
So
She's by far
A
the
Zoomer.
closest out of
So
any
we're
of us.
we're all three of us we're all millennials, so we can really resonate with the 90s era of rom-coms. But like I will list off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 5.5 of movies and tell me if you think they resonate still with the Gen Z crowd. Now, if you don't know what these movies are,
Might not know all of
shameful.
them.
Shame.
I might not know
Shame.
all of them.
Okay, number 1. This is a classic. She's All That. Do you think the Gen Z crowd would resonate with that movie?
Clearly wasn't all that because I never watched that
What?
movie.
Okay,
Wait,
Do I look like I was a big rom-com
No,
guy?
wait. So if
I think I've seen like one of these.
let's put the cover.
Like,
let's-
what about me? Look at me. He's like, I bet Jeff's seen She's All That. He's just every weekend was
Honestly,
at the
no.
Dollar Theater watching rom-coms.
I could believe that.
I was more of an Adam Sandler guy. Is he any of these
Happy
Adam
Gilmore.
Sandler movies?
No, because they're not rom-coms.
Pre-Netflix Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler's
51st
Adam
Dates.
Have you seen Click? That is the most sad, most heart-wrenching love story I've ever seen.
Again, it's not a rom-com though.
It's romantic. It's funny.
It's
Rom-com.
not-
Romantic
the closest,
comedy.
The closest rom-com Sandler's done is probably Spanglish.
50 First Dates.
Remember Spanglish?
Guys, 50 First Dates gave me so much anxiety.
Actually, no, 50 First
I would have
Dates.
just given up.
I feel like that would
50
count.
First Dates, or what was it called? Blended Family.
Yeah,
Him and Aniston.
Or wasn't it just called Blended?
Blended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't see
Anyways,
it.
okay, so I say she's all that because there's been a remake of
Yes.
it. Do you know Abby?
Okay, I haven't watched it, but I've
he's
seen
all-
the original one.
He's all that because the popular girl is Addison Rae.
They
from
brought it
TikTok.
back.
and it's like is
So
it
that's
like
why-
a nerdy boy?
Yes.
Is that the type? He
said-
takes his
Yeah,
he takes his glasses off
oh,
and then he's
nerdy.
fine. Is that
Yeah,
what
I think
happens?
so.
Instead of a
Dirty.
nerdy girl, it's now a nerdy boy.
He's like a dirty boy.
Dirty boy.
No, nerdy.
Watch your language over there.
Okay.
Camo?
Next one.
This podcast is PG-13.
Have you seen Clueless?
Oh yeah.
I'm clueless.
Is that with
That is like a 90s
like I had a
classic
crush
for
on
sure.
that
Yes.
I've never seen it.
Clueless? Okay. Well,
I don't think I saw that
What
one.
about Pretty Woman?
I didn't see that one.
Who's in?
thought
Is that
Pretty Woman's
is
That
that
was Julia. That was
Julia
Julia
Roberts.
Roberts.
Wasn't that 80s?
No, that was 90s.
honestly? As
Oh,
you're
I was-
saying these,
I
I
thought
can
that was
picture.
I think it was 90s.
I can picture them on the wall at Blockbuster as a kid, but I
As-
never
as-
watched them.
As we're saying these movie titles, a cover will come on the screen. Don't worry.
Okay.
But you won't
Fancy.
know that. Only the viewer. Okay. 10 things I hate about you.
Oh, is that with Matthew? Or
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
Or no.
You're close.
Keith Ledger. Wait.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And Julia Stiles, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I haven't seen that one either.
I'm impressed that I
This-
know all
this
of these when
one-
Jeff does
Yeah.
it.
This one Jeff mentioned, but never been kissed.
Was that with Drew Barrymore?
Yes. Yeah.
You're better than you think you are, man.
No. But I haven't actually watched like most of these, but I know of
just
them.
knows.
Okay, but have you
But
guys
I also
seen?
have a weird like I'm like a movie. I love movies.
I do
So
too. I
like-
just never been like a rom. I know all these movies.
like I watched the Oscars
Okay.
and the Golden Globes and the red carpet
But
interviews.
okay, this last one, this last
I
one,
always record them when we're at the project, and then I can watch it after.
this last one. Tell me if you think it's a rom com or not. I'm 100% sure you guys all know this one, but I don't know if it's a rom com or not. Ready?
Okay.
Legally Blonde.
Absolutely.
Is it a rom com?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it more about the love story or her becoming a lawyer?
No. It's a pure.
Both
It's just.
on
Both
equal.
and.
It's just
they're
a
on an equal
pure.
playing field.
It's pure romantic. There's no comedy
and
because
may
I don't think
add,
it's funny.
Do you have you guys seen Legally Blonde 2?
Yes.
Okay, do
I
you
have
guys
only
know?
seen the
Do you
first
guys know that Legally Blonde 3 comes out this year,
Wow.
2023?
So she's like a
Legally
like a
Blonde.
mom?
Is she in
I
it?
don't know. Is she a grandmother? I don't know. Maybe mom.
how old
Probably
would she
mom.
be?
That's
Wow.
better.
She's not like 70 years old. Like, isn't she like pretty young still?
No. Anyways, so keep an eye on. I think end of 2023.
Crazy.
Do they
Legally
make
Blonde 3?
do they make
And-
rom coms really anymore?
Yeah, they're all on
Probably.
Netflix.
I feel like
It's all Netflix originals now.
if anything, the fashion from all of those, like from that era, is
It's coming back.
extremely
It's coming back.
relevant
Oh, no, it's
to Gen
back.
Z.
The fashion, the cringiness, the
And like
soundtracks, the
like the
It's all back.
graphics, like
graphics.
But that's
Yeah,
that happens
colors.
like 6 years ago. 80s style was
with like
was
Stranger
that.
Things. Like I feel like Usher.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then I remember when we were in college, like there's a lot of like 50s and 60s stuff. So like here's what's coming. Actually, I've already heard some of this like on
Early 2000s.
Let me tell you, before we get there, before society
wanna bring
goes
that
back,
era back.
it was not good.
No.
It was bad. It's the 90s is bad. The 2000s
I like
is
the
like
90s. Actually, I like and I like the 80s too. I don't like the early 2000s though.
2000s was like a mutated
The music,
version of the
I
90s.
feel like the music, like the way they would.
2005 to
Where
2010.
are you?
No. But that's 2000. That's like 2005. I'm talking like 2000 to 2005. Like this weird
Yeah.
like Y2K trying to figure out. Yeah, the music I loved of like pop punk and stuff like
I
that.
don't want
But
to go back to that
Dude, Black
music.
Eyed Peas.
Black Eyed Peas were they
Where's
were the
Where's the
biggest
Love?
deal. And
Trying
yeah,
to-
that was
yeah.
with Justin Timberlake, right?
Um,
Yeah, they did a
Yes.
version of it with Justin
Yeah, yeah.
Timberlake. But like 2000, 2001, 2002, and like probably till about 2004, 2005, like society was lost. We didn't know what we wanted to be. Fashion was, like, you got Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake wearing like all denim. Like there's that famous picture of them in all denim.
Denim.
oh, Damon.
In all denim. In all denim. Like
They're all
a denim.
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon hat, Matt Damon shirt, Matt
Or like-
Damon pants.
Like the haircuts that were like it It was like spiky in the back and then like flat on the front.
Yeah, Caesar. Like
no. The spiky that's like 2008, 2009.
Maybe I'm. Yeah.
I'm talking like dippity
and like
doo.
the baggy jeans.
yes,
Like Papa Roach
like-
haircuts.
Yeah, like spiky hair everywhere.
Maybe I have such bad memories of
Everything
that
is
because
2000.
I was so
I-
awkward during that time that like I feel like
Is that when you were painting the fence in that picture?
As a,
Can we
as,
put?
as a, as a
we
subway,
need to put that up
yes,
on
as-
the screen.
as a Subway
man,
sandwich
those are-
artist. But you're I know more about Brett's life.
For the
than Brett
record, my
has- than Brett
Facebook
himself.
my Facebook profile, my
I will-
profession was a sandwich artist.
I
you were
I-
at Subway?
No,
No, that was
I just thought it was funny that it
that
said
was
sandwich artist.
no, that was his
So I put
Facebook. That was
that.
his Facebook occupation.
I was on there for a long
I will
time. I think it
designate
still
myself to
says
write
that.
Brett's autobiography.
Someone should check my
'Cause
Facebook profile page. And
We need to make Brett a Wikipedia.
Abby, you should look that up.
You should, because you said that the whole spiky hair in the back, no, the thing in front. I know it's 2008, 2009, 2010 because I had that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I was playing in a band.
I wasn't cool enough to do
Some
that.
of the haircuts back then that I had were just
I didn't even do my
painful
hair.
to look back. Like faux hawks. Remember when everyone had a faux
Oh,
hawk?
I had a faux hawk.
Faux hawk and then a rat tail in the back. Like the faux hawk goes back.
The biggest
into-
cringe was youth pastors wearing the faux hawks.
Yeah.
Because they were wearing faux hawks with very skinny jeans, extremely skinny jeans. Oh, V-necks, faux hawk,
Oh, yeah.
V-neck,
And a
skinny
deep-
jean.
I remember
And it wasn't
And
the
it-
right fit.
Oh, it was
Yeah,
not.
I
It's
know what you're
not.
saying.
Not flattering at
The
all.
deep V down to the belly button was a bad look.
I also can confirm that
It still
Brett-
says that?
It still says
Nice.
sandwich artist at Subway.
On your Facebook?
Yeah.
Yeah, never changed it.
You should put that on your LinkedIn.
I should.
You just start getting calls from
Should.
different sandwich shops,
Sandwich artist.
headhunters.
I could work at OEB with Natalie.
Also,
as a
how
sandwich
is
artist.
it that 10 years ago Brett looked older than he was today?
I'm like Benjamin Button.
When he was like painting the fence, he looked like a 40-year-old
aging.
man.
Not
aging
one
backwards.
person listening to this is going to know what Benjamin Button is. It's a horrible movie where someone ages in reverse.
I liked that movie.
Ugh.
It like made me like reflect on life.
So a big portion of the series is talking about the actual dating life. And the question is, why is your dating life so complicated? Why does your dating life have so many red flags? Dating's complicated.
Yeah,
You think?
It is, yeah.
especially if you date crazy people.
All those love games,
Yes.
you know? Playing,
And I
trying to
think-
play those love games. They're complicated.
And I think there's one thing.
Right, Abby? Huh? Sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I
No,
think
it's true.
I think there's one thing being in the marriage life, and there's such a huge part of your life being married, and there's such a huge part of being singleness. But I feel like there's this gap of the dating world where it's like it is make or break. Also on who you are, your integrity, your character, because all in all, wouldn't you agree? You want to date right,
Right.
right? And for the most part, there's good ways of doing it. There's not so good ways of doing it. I'm speaking this message, but help me out here because I'm kind of like trailing in different areas here. I'm either talking about what are the exit signs in a dating relationship, or what are the red flags in a dating relationship. Which direction do you think I should go?
Wait, what was the first one again?
Exit signs.
Like,
So, for example,
like
they're
end
all
it right now.
They're all kind of along the same.
Yeah, isn't that just
thematic
two different ways of saying the
timeline?
same
It's
thing?
kind of like, yeah. Well, how do I go about this?
Talking like yellow flags versus red flags. Like a red flag. To
No,
me
red
is like-
flags.
red flag to me is like, okay, we're done. Like this should be the end. A
Well,
yellow
red-
flag is like, well, maybe this person, she's pretty attractive, so maybe I'll fight through and make sure it's not a red flag. Sometimes there's red flags and sometimes there's yellow flags.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
like a red flag is like, okay, this is like,
Yeah.
I really know that, but it's like you kind of want to force it further. Like a yellow flag is like, maybe, it's probably a sign, but I'll give the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. So like, yeah, it's true. So like some red flags. I kind of like jot some notes down because I was just kind of preparing for this message here. A red flag. Okay, and tell me if you like. We can talk about this a little more. But like, number one, a red flag is when the character is not what attracts you. It's only like the surface level physicalness. That can be a dangerous game to play. Because as a matter of fact, I'll be showing this stat at the project, but it shows this graph essentially when women get older, the attractiveness to men is alongside the same age bracket as them. So like a 20-year-old girl will be attracted to a 22, 23-year-old guy. When the woman's 49, she'll be attracted to essentially the same age bracket, like 50, 51. A guy, this will blow your mind. A guy that's 20 will be attracted to a 20-year-old girl. A 49-year-old guy will just still be attracted to a 20-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird and creepy?
Yeah. Like I understand the stat, but it makes me uncomfortable.
Hey, this is what we're talking about. This.
But yeah.
So dating someone based off physicalness, especially not just the guy's perspective. You can go both ways, but from the guy's perspective, like it's not gonna last you.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable.
Well, and eventually we all get ugly.
We all get ugly.
Like that's the reality.
Some of us are already there.
just stares right at me. You had to make it self-direct, huh? As he just stares into my soul.
That's why Jeff got married so young.
Oh yeah,
Lock it in.
He knew his days were numbered
Lock it in.
I only had a couple weeks left, and
until I turn ugly.
oh man, I remember one time sitting across from my friend Jordan. We're out for food, and we're both single, and we're like 21, 20 years old. I'll probably tell this story too, but he's like, "Why can't we get girlfriends? Like, what? This is ridiculous. Like, what's wrong with us?" And I just like looked up from the table, like, Jordan,
You're ugly.
maybe. Have you ever thought that maybe we're ugly? He's like, no, don't say that. And I was like, hey, maybe we're.
I always knew I was ugly, and I just owned it. And then girls just,
Girls like confidence, so I was just confident that I was ugly.
I used my ugliness to my advantage.
True.
That's good. I don't think that's what we're talking what we're trying to talk about here. But what were we talking about? Ugliness?
Character being attracted to the physicalness.
Yeah, because like at the end of the day, you're not you're gonna be 80 one day, and like no one feels like they're at their peak fitness or attractiveness when your skin is sagging and you can't hardly walk and you've gained a bunch of weight, and like that's just life. Like aesthetics go away.
Yeah. And in dating relationship, I think character would lead you so much more and so much better in a dating life than your attractional features. Like even, I can't believe I'm quoting like Song of Songs here, but there's a story in it where like the girl is kind of infatuated with this guy, saying all these compliments of how beautiful he is, but also she says, but your name and your reputation backs it up. And so to be attracted to someone, I would, love to date someone, and yes, of course, they'll be attracted to, but also have the name and the reputation to back that up, because there's so much more depth, and it's not going to be a hollow dating relationship. Does that make sense? So,
yeah, it's tricky because like absolutely there is like a physical component. Like you're not going to want to be with someone that you're not attracted to, but if your standard is that it has to be like a supermodel on the other side, number one, you might want to gain some self-awareness, because the chances are that you may be being unreasonable. But the physical only lasts for so long. It only contributes to a very moderate portion of a relationship. And what's more important is that someone's kind to you, someone's kind to others, somebody pushes you to be better, and ideally to be more like Jesus. And if you're not getting that, then you're missing. That's not marriage material. No, like you need to ask the question, if this person, and this does happen, like we say these things in the wedding vows, like till death does us part, or for better or for worse. Like what if that person got a debilitating disease, ended up in a wheelchair, severe burns? Like these are pretty aggressive examples, but like what if, severe, was in a house fire, like burned, and frankly just all the aesthetic was gone. Mm-hmm. Do you still love that person? Does that person love you enough that would they just walk away? Yeah. Like that's a big question.
Even like going back to scripture on it, like I remember, that was one thing that really stood out to me when I was like sorting through whether to get married or not, like to Natalie and stuff. But it was like, I remember reading Proverbs 31, and it was like
classic.
I know it's so
it's still good though.
But I'd always, up until that point, I'd always kind of just been like brushed over that chapter, because I was like, oh, Proverbs 31 woman, like everyone like talks about it, like blah, 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 like it's super corny. Don't laugh over there. Abby's just laughing at me. But it's like, the majority of it is like character. And then at the very end, the only time it mentions like physical appearance, it says like charm is deceitful and beauty doesn't last.
Yeah.
And so it's like it talks about character the whole time, and then the one time it mentions like physical beauty, it's like be careful with it, because not that there's anything, and we're not
tricky.
Well, and we're not saying that there's anything wrong with being physically attracted to someone. Like, that's important and it's part of it, and it's like great, you know, like, but just it can blind you though, like, you know. And I think, and one more thing on that too, even like going, like you were talking about aging and stuff, like that's the amazing thing about character, is that character ages really well. And it, like, if anything, you know, it
gets
becomes
better.
Yeah, it becomes
fine wine.
Character will become more attractive over time, but physical appearance, yeah, everyone loses that as they age, no matter who you are, you know. So
Yes. Character is like fine wine. Attractiveness is like Mountain Dew Baja Blast.
Baja Blast.
I appreciate
Does
like
it-
the specific.
Does
that
the
it
Baja
is
Blast not
Baja
get
Blast.
better over time? I'm just kidding.
Baja Blast is like, I just don't like
Baja Blast will probably just solidify over time.
Depends how you freeze it.
Are you freezing it?
Sorry, you had a great statement. I just ruined.
No,
ruined it.
No, it's true. Character ages really well.
Yeah.
That's a great point that Brett brought in. Yeah, it's when it comes to red
Yeah.
flags and romance. You know, I think we'll talk about that more in the series, but looking forward to that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all the time we have. The series is starts
Hopeless
either
Romantic.
next week or the week after, depending when this comes out. But
The
Hopeless
series
Romantic.
starts last month.
Last month. Okay.
Last year.
We'll
We
just
just decided
we'll just
to
say
save it.
every version of it, and then in post we'll edit it. But anyways, check out the series. If you can check it out live, that's great. Or if not, you can go to our YouTube or to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere where you can find podcasts, and those will be up there, as well as previous and future episodes of this podcast as well. So you can join us at The Project on Sunday nights at 7 o'clock at our Millwoods campus. And you can always join us at theprojectyeg.com or on YouTube to catch it live with us as well. So we hope to see you there.